on his head. I kept trying to get away, but for 10.5 minutes, he was tucking me under his pectoral fin and...
A great white shark vanished. No blood, no body, only a strange tag recording heat, pressure, and a sudden deep dive. For years, it was a chilling mystery. Now, marine biologists have solved it. Something is eating great white sharks, and the answer is not what anyone expected. It's even more terrifying. The vanishing of a shark. In 2003, a team of marine biologists off the coast of Western Australia tagged a healthy 9-foot female great white shark. It was part of a routine long-term study meant to gather data on migratory patterns, hunting behavior, and thermoregulation. The tag, a small titanium-encased device, was programmed to record location, depth, and temperature every few seconds. After a few months, it would detach, float to the surface, and transmit its findings via satellite. That's how the system worked. But this time it didn't. 4 months later, the tag washed up on a beach nearly 2.5 miles from its last known ping. The shark, meanwhile, was gone. No body, no carcass, not even a trace of blood or tissue. At first, the researchers thought it had simply failed to record the end. But when they downloaded the data, it told a story far stranger than a technical error. The logs revealed a rapid plunge in depth, down to nearly 1,900 feet in just minutes. Simultaneously, the internal temperature of the tag spiked from the cold surrounding ocean to approximately 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That alone raised eyebrows. The ocean at that depth should have been icy, nearly freezing. But this tag had suddenly found itself in a warm environment, one moving steadily deeper into the ocean. To marine biologists, the meaning was clear. This tag wasn't malfunctioning. It had been swallowed, not just by any fish, but by something large enough, warm-blooded enough, and fast enough to devour a 9-foot shark and drag it into the abyss. What had begun as a routine data capture had now become a scientific anomaly. A predator had taken out a predator, and not just any predator, one of the most feared creatures in the sea. The mystery unraveled slowly. It wasn't sensational speculation, it was data. The tag had recorded it all. A shark had vanished, and something larger, something more dominant, had been responsible. The question now wasn't if the shark had been eaten. It was what could possibly have eaten it. Apex predator elevated. Great white sharks are the apex of apex predators, creatures designed by evolution to dominate the ocean. Fast, powerful, cold-blooded assassins that can detect a drop of blood from miles away. Few creatures challenge them. Even fewer succeed. So when the tag data revealed that a healthy adult great white had not only been attacked but consumed whole, the scientific community was forced to confront an uncomfortable possibility. There might be something bigger. The idea wasn't folklore. It wasn't a sailor's tale or a murky video clip. It was hard telemetry, a digital fingerprint left in the open sea, depth changes, heat signatures, acceleration patterns. They didn't lie. Some speculated a giant squid. Others floated theories of deep-sea predators never seen before. But the numbers didn't match. The thermal spikes suggested something warm-blooded, which ruled out nearly every known deep-sea creature. Others pointed to orcas, highly intelligent killers known to prey on great whites. But orcas have a signature. They don't swallow sharks whole. They remove the liver with precision and leave the rest. And more importantly, orca body temperature is closer to 97 to 100 degrees, far higher than the 78 degree spike the tag recorded. Still, the fact remained: the top predator in the sea had been hunted and taken. The implications sent a jolt through marine science. Could there be a super predator roaming these waters, one we hadn't accounted for? Something with both the power and the hunger to hunt great whites? Theories abounded. Could it be a rogue whale, a larger undocumented species of shark? Or was it a case of intraspecies cannibalism? Because sometimes the most terrifying predator of all is one of your own kind. And when scientists began looking at shark behavior through a new lens, an ancient primal answer started to emerge: cannibalism among sharks. When you think of great white sharks, you picture dominance, confidence, the peak of the food chain. But beneath that cold-blooded superiority lies something far more primal: cannibalism. Sharks are not sentimental creatures. Even before birth, many shark species begin competing in the womb. Intrauterine cannibalism, where the strongest embryo consumes its siblings, is documented in species like sand tiger sharks. Before they ever take their first breath, they've already taken their first life. Outside the womb, that same instinct can carry into adulthood. Tiger sharks, bull sharks, and even smaller great whites have all been seen feeding on weaker sharks. In some regions, great whites will prey on juvenile members of their own kind, particularly if food is scarce or competition is fierce. It's not the rule, but it's not rare either. This ancient behavior gave scientists their first major clue. If sharks were willing to consume their kin under the right conditions, then the idea of a larger great white attacking a smaller one wasn't fiction. It was biology. The tag data from the 2003 incident had initially shocked researchers because it implied that a 9-foot shark had been completely swallowed. That fact alone seemed implausible. But when marine biologists began comparing known feeding habits and recorded depths of larger sharks in the area, the pieces began to fall into place. A shark large enough, say 16 to 20 feet in length, could feasibly consume a smaller great white in a single strike, especially if it attacked from below without warning. No chase, no struggle, just dominance. The internal temperature spike recorded by the tag also aligned with endothermic thermoregulation, a capability unique to large, fast sharks like the great white and the mako. These sharks maintain elevated body temperatures relative to the water, giving them bursts of speed and power. But only a few shark species are capable of producing the kind of warm, consistent body heat seen in the tag's data. And it wasn't just a fluke. Following the 2003 event, researchers began reviewing similar cases, tagged sharks that had vanished mysteriously, with no trauma, no trace. And more often than not, the tags that did resurface showed the same pattern: sudden warmth, a steep descent, and eventual ejection back into open water. The theory became more than a hypothesis. It became a trend, a behavioral pattern hiding in plain sight. What scientists once thought were simple equipment losses or shark deaths due to injury might actually be signs of a quiet war among giants. Great whites hunting great whites. But not everyone was convinced. Another predator, far more theatrical and intelligent, also left its mark in these waters. Data-driven deduction. While the idea of shark cannibalism started gaining ground, marine biologists knew they needed more than theory. They needed data. So they returned to the source, the tag. The tag recovered in 2003 had recorded more than just heat. It logged depth, acceleration, and time-stamped patterns that showed how the object moved post-ingestion. When compared to movement patterns of known ocean predators, one candidate quickly began standing out. Not the orca and not an unknown species, but a very large great white shark. The depth of behavior was key. After the tag was swallowed, it descended to nearly 1,900 feet, then moved in slow, sweeping arcs, patterns almost identical to other large-tagged great whites tracked in the region. These weren't erratic movements. They were deliberate, calculated. The kind made by a shark gliding along the thermocline, scanning for prey, adjusting its buoyancy. It was too coordinated to be random, too shark-like to be anything else. Even the digestive delay matched. It took hours before the tag was expelled, suggesting the predator had a digestive cycle consistent with shark biology, not a rapid ejection like an orca's bite-and-drop tactic. Orcas rarely consume entire sharks. Instead, they surgically extract the liver, rich in oils, and discard the rest. The 2003 tag, however, experienced the full digestive curve of something that had swallowed it whole and let time do the work. And there was more. In the years following, tagging programs expanded across the Southern Ocean. More sharks were fitted with tracking devices, and a pattern emerged. Missing tags began surfacing in clusters. Often they bore the same thermal signature: spikes in temperature, deep dives, ejection. All signs pointed toward an apex predator. Not mythical, but measurable. The consistency of these cases became undeniable. One researcher called it the fingerprint of a super predator. It was a trail left not in blood or bone, but in data, and it painted a picture of dominance feeding, where the larger shark eliminates the competition, not just for food, but for territory. Marine science doesn't always deal in spectacle. Most discoveries are incremental, careful, but this one wasn't. This was a revelation hiding in raw telemetry, and it forced experts to admit that even the top predator isn't safe from its own kind. But despite the data, another theory still loomed: the orca hypothesis, equally dramatic and backed by its own trail of evidence. The orca hypothesis. If there's one predator that matches the great white in reputation and exceeds it in intelligence, it's the orca. Known colloquially as killer whales, these mammals aren't just smart, they're surgical. In recent years, evidence has surfaced of orcas preying specifically on great whites, especially off the coast of South Africa and Western Australia. But these aren't frenzied attacks. They're anatomical operations. In False Bay, two orcas known as Port and Starboard became infamous for a string of shark killings. The carcasses they left behind all bore the same precise wound, a vertical slit behind the pectoral fins, where the liver had been cleanly removed. Not torn, not gnawed, removed, every time. It became clear these orcas had learned to target sharks for their nutrient-rich livers, which are packed with squalene, a dense oil essential for shark buoyancy and an energy goldmine for predators. Suddenly, white sharks were abandoning traditional hunting zones. Entire populations migrated to avoid areas where orcas were spotted. Tracking data confirmed that after even one orca predation event, great whites would flee the region for weeks. This alone made the orca hypothesis attractive when the 2003 tag emerged. A warm-blooded predator, a great white disappearing. The pieces seemed to fit. Orcas are known to dive deep. They hunt cooperatively, they're fast, and in captivity and in the wild, they've been observed showing signs of deliberate behavior, curiosity, problem-solving, even teaching their young how to hunt in specific, learned ways. So it's no surprise that orcas quickly became the public's favorite suspect. They were cinematic, charismatic, and terrifying. But while their intelligence and anatomical precision are unmatched, their physical behavior left one hole in the theory: they don't swallow their prey whole. The 2003 tag didn't show slicing. It didn't show the bite drop liver theft typical of orca kills. Instead, it showed a thermal spike from partial ingestion, followed by a slow descent and internal digestion before being expelled. And then there's temperature. Orcas maintain an internal body temperature of 97 to 100 degrees, consistent with most mammals. The tag recorded a spike to only 78 degrees, far too low to match an orca's core temperature. That number aligned more closely with the warm tissues of a large endothermic shark, like a great white. Still, the orca hypothesis remained relevant. These apex predators have become ecosystem disruptors. In areas where they've been sighted, shark patterns have shifted dramatically. Fear alone can drive migration, and fear can create vacancies in the hierarchy, opening doors for bigger sharks to claim more territory. So even if the 2003 event wasn't caused by orcas, their presence still loomed in the background. Their impact on shark populations was undeniable. They didn't just kill, they reshaped the ocean's power structure. But to rule them out completely, researchers needed to go deeper into the numbers, the depths, and the signatures only one kind of animal could leave behind. White orcas don't fit this case. For all there was precision and power, the orca didn't leave the right kind of trail. The 2003 case, with its sudden temperature rise and steep descent, broke every known pattern in orca behavior. First, there's the thermal mismatch. An orca's body runs hot, between 97 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The tag, however, logged an internal spike to just 78 degrees, suggesting a warm but significantly cooler environment than what an orca's digestive tract would produce. It pointed instead toward the digestive cavity of a large, warm-blooded shark, which has evolved to regulate body heat at levels just above surrounding seawater. Second, orcas don't typically swallow prey whole. Their attacks on great whites are targeted and selective. When they hunt sharks, they disable them with calculated blows and strip them for parts, usually just the liver. The rest of the body is left to sink or drift, sometimes intact except for the missing organ. The 2003 event showed no such trauma, no liver-targeted precision, no signs of selective feeding. What's more, the depth behavior recorded by the tag doesn't match orca hunting patterns. After ingestion, the tag dropped to nearly 1,900 feet and stayed there in smooth, methodical arcs. Orcas can dive deep, but they typically hunt in shallower zones and make quick, direct movements. The steady descent resembled known movement profiles of deep gliding sharks, not the looping, high-speed pursuits of marine mammals. And then there's the aftermath, or rather the lack of one. In documented orca attacks, shark populations evacuate. The scent of orcas triggers panic in entire coastal regions. But after the 2003 incident, no such shift occurred. No shark migration. No sudden drop in activity. If orcas had been the culprit, the ecosystem would have responded accordingly. But it didn't. The region remained steady. These inconsistencies forced marine biologists to draw a line. While orcas were known shark predators, they didn't match the data from this case. Their temperature was too high. Their feeding behavior was too clean. And their presence left a trail of ecological fear that simply didn't exist here. So if it wasn't orcas, and it wasn't an unknown creature, what did that leave? Only one answer: a bigger shark. A great white, massive enough to swallow another whole, endothermic enough to heat the tag, and territorial enough to act without hesitation. And that predator, the one hidden in plain sight, was about to be confirmed as real. The super predator theory confirmed. The phrase super predator sounds like it belongs in science fiction, but in the open ocean, reality often outpaces imagination. And as data from the 2003 tag was compared against known behaviors, a consistent profile emerged, not of an unknown creature, but of something terrifyingly familiar: a larger great white shark. All signs pointed to it. The depth patterns recorded by the tag matched known hunting dives of mature great whites, particularly those in the 16 to 20-foot range. These aren't common specimens, but they do exist, documented off Guadalupe Island, South Africa, and southern Australia. These behemoths are faster, smarter, and bolder. They don't just dominate prey, they dominate territory. To swallow a 9-foot shark whole or in large pieces, a predator needs not just size, but strategy. And that's exactly what the data showed. No wild thrashing, no evidence of a prolonged fight. The tag shark was struck and consumed in what researchers described as a stealth kill: fast, final, and silent. The thermal signature, again, supported this. A temperature of 78 degrees Celsius suggested a predator whose internal systems ran hotter than the ocean, but cooler than marine mammals. That profile only fits endothermic sharks, capable of raising their body temperature for short bursts of energy and metabolic advantage. Over time, more data emerged. Cases once considered anomalies were re-examined. Tags from other great whites had shown similar signatures: sudden spikes, deep dives, and delayed resurfacing. They weren't glitches, they were patterns. What scientists were now facing wasn't a one-off, it was a behavior model. These super-sized sharks, operating on a level few had seen, were capable of intraspecific predation, hunting and consuming smaller members of their species. It wasn't aggression, it was efficiency, a way to eliminate competition, claim dominance, and assert control over a region rich in prey. What made it remarkable wasn't just the act itself, but the fact that it had gone unnoticed. For years, marine biology had seen these anomalies as outliers, not signals. The 2003 tag changed that. One marine biologist put it plainly: we weren't wrong about sharks, we were looking at the wrong sharks. It reframed the hierarchy beneath the waves. Great whites weren't at the top. Not all of them. In truth, the ocean's pyramid had layers, and at the top of that structure sat the super predator, a white shark that hunts its own kind. And if this predator redefined the rules, it also reshaped the ecosystem that has supported it. The ecosystem implications. The moment marine biologists confirmed the existence of supersized cannibalistic great whites, another question emerged. What does that do to the rest of the ocean? The answer is simple. Everything shifts. In ecosystems, apex predators influence far more than just their prey. They define movement, reproduction, and survival patterns. And when one predator begins preying on another of its own species, the food web doesn't just stretch, it warps. Smaller great whites, juveniles, and even mid-sized adults no longer enjoy their assumed safety at the top. Instead, they become cautious, evasive. They migrate differently. They avoid regions marked by larger, dominant individuals. Tracking data has revealed strange absences. Dead zones where smaller sharks used to thrive, now abandoned due to the presence of a territorial super white. This change in territory behavior has cascading effects. Seals and sea lions, traditional prey of mid-sized great whites, may see momentary relief in regions now vacated, but that calm is temporary. The large sharks that claim those zones are even more efficient hunters. And then there's the tagging data itself. Biologists now suspect that many earlier tag loss events, written off as technical failures or unknown malfunctions, were actually signs of predator-on-predator action. The evidence was there all along, hidden in partial logs and misunderstood temperature anomalies. One example involved a tagged shark off Neptune Islands whose device disappeared mid-transmission. Years later, that tag was recovered and revealed the same temperature and depth curve as the 2003 case. It hadn't failed, it had been eaten. These events are no longer rare. They're becoming identifiable, predictable, and that's changing how scientists track and interpret marine behavior. It's also changing conservation priorities. Super predators disrupt population balance, not just by reducing numbers, but by shifting behaviors across an entire ecosystem. Fish move, seals adapt, competing sharks flee. And all of this creates a dynamic where survival isn't just about finding food, but avoiding becoming food. Ironically, the realization that even apex predators are vulnerable has made them more relatable. No creature is immune to pressure. Even the king must watch the throne. Researchers are now looking at older data sets with fresh eyes, searching for overlooked patterns. Because the ocean has been telling this story for decades. We just didn't understand the language. And now that we do, one truth becomes clear. In the sea, dominance is never permanent. It's contested, claimed, and sometimes consumed. But if super whites rule with power, orcas rule with fear, and when both show up, the ocean itself seems to flinch. Orcas versus super whites, changing roles. In the marine world, two apex predators now stand at the top of a fractured throne, orcas and supersized great whites. And while they rarely clash directly, their influence carves out new boundaries across the ocean. Orcas dominate through intelligence and coordination. They hunt in packs, communicate through complex vocalizations, and adapt their tactics by region. A group of orcas in False Bay, South Africa, learned to extract the livers of great whites with surgical precision. Within weeks, white sharks abandoned the area. The ocean floor, once teeming with shadowy patrols of great whites, fell silent. Super whites dominate through ambush and raw force. They don't cooperate. They don't need to. Their influence isn't social, it's solitary, territorial. They create exclusion zones not through fear, but by eliminating competition one shark at a time. Both predators cause other sharks to change behavior, but they do it differently. Orcas cause migration through panic. Great whites flee entire coastlines after an orca attack. With super whites, the effect is more subtle. Sharks disappear not because they're afraid, but because they're eaten. It's easy for documentaries to focus on the orca. The footage is compelling. Drones catch them breaching, flipping rays, or dragging sharks by their fins. It's a clean story. Mammal outwits fish. Killer whale beats shark. But the 2003 data and the years of analysis that followed revealed that not all great white deaths are orchestrated from above. Some come from within. Shark cannibalism doesn't have the visual drama of orcas breaching, but it tells a different kind of story, one of deep-sea competition, of ancient instincts sharpening across millennia. Super whites aren't villains, they're survivors. So who rules the sea? That depends on where you're looking. Off the coast of South Africa, orcas have cleared entire bays. In the deep Pacific, super whites hold reign with silent precision. One manipulates fear, the other physical dominance. And the greatest shift in marine science isn't just that both exist, but that we finally see them simultaneously. Two predators operating on different frequencies, reshaping the map of the ocean in real time. And what we learn from them is not just about sharks or whales, but about how power is never absolute beneath the waves. What this teaches us. For decades, we saw the great white shark as the ultimate predator, a solitary enforcer of the ocean's most brutal rules. But that view was always too simple. What the data has shown, what the 2003 tag first whispered, and what years of follow-up research confirmed, is that even apex predators are part of a larger, more dynamic hierarchy. A great white can fall, and sometimes it falls to another great white. This doesn't just change the way we view sharks, it changes the way we understand ecosystems. It reminds us that nature isn't built on fixed pyramids. It moves, it adjusts, it responds. Intraspecific predation, where the predator becomes prey, reveals a layer of complexity we're only beginning to grasp. Tags once dismissed as faulty are now viewed as forensic clues in an ongoing survival narrative. Every heat spike, every sudden dive, might be the moment when one shark devoured another. Marine biologists now treat tagging data not just as tracking, but as testimony. And beyond the science, this story carries a lesson. In nature, the crown is never safe. Survival isn't just about strength, it's about timing, instinct, and luck. Even in the deep, where no light penetrates, there are rules, unwritten, ruthless, and always shifting. What began as a mystery, one missing shark and a strange tag, became a paradigm shift. We no longer ask what happened to the shark. We ask, what does it mean that it could be eaten at all? Because in the vast, unsentimental ocean, there's always something bigger. And if we've learned anything from sharks, from orcas, and from the fragile data stitched together by science, it's this. Even the strongest must look over their shoulder. The ocean has no true kings, only shifting thrones. The great white's reign was never absolute. Thanks to one swallow tracking tag, we now know the truth. Even apex predators aren't safe. Nature doesn't respect titles. It follows hunger. And in the deep, there's always something bigger, waiting, silent, and unseen.